a video about facing ourselves, a couple of poems to speak to it, and then maybe just talk about it a bit. If you face your demons, they become butterflies. If you meet your darkness, it dissolves into love. If you cease your resistance, it reveals the truth of you. And if you stop avoiding life, you fall into presence. Here's something I've just written. Friend, I had to face my own inner demons, and my life, it shattered, splintered into 1,000 pieces. There was nothing left to hold on to, no ground beneath my feet, no answers, no way out. All I could do was fall into the emptiness, into the ache, into the fire of everything I didn't want to feel. And yet, from the rubble, from the ashes, something stirred. Not a grand revelation, but a quiet knowing, a humble truth rising from the wreckage. It whispered, "You are not broken. You are being broken open." And in that opening, I found a light, not separate from the darkness, a love that didn't need fixing, a peace that made room for all the storms. This is where I began again, not as the one I thought I should be, but as the one who could finally just be. If those who cannot face themselves, cannot face others, for me, facing myself was not only a spiritual experience, journey, it was also very human, really emotional, really mental, really, and ultimately, that willingness to face myself was the beginning of the new phase of my life, the new unfolding of a journey that's led to here, I would say, through all its myriad paths and unfoldings and unravelings and realizations, tears, sorrows, joys, rages, all the levels and unveilings, all in many ways started because something happened that opened the door for me to be able to face myself. Before that, I was running. Before that, I was avoiding. Before that, I was deflecting, projecting, judging, lost. I would say lost. I mean, lostness comes with youth in many ways. For many people, we don't really know. We haven't got the awareness, and to a certain extent, we're driven by the impulses and by the conditioning and by the pain, and just by being young. It's just the way it is. And for me, I was blessed when I got to about 35, maybe 40. That some grace happened that allowed me the opportunity to face myself. And thank God I did, because I was falling apart so badly and my body was racked, and I was, deep, deep, deep inside the dependence on hedonism and drinking and, all things. So, this was a very human saving. It wasn't really out of choice. It was just out of necessity. If I wanted to change or grow or even just live, quite frankly. And it made a man of me. Not a man in the conventional sense, but a man because I can face myself, and I do face myself. I face myself every day. You have to, until there's not really anything left to face because there's no more argument and there's no more avoiding. It's gone. There's no more, as far as I know, trouble lurking under the surface because I was willing to face what I was running away from. And there are those who can and there are those who won't. And somewhere in the middle are a lot of people who struggle with facing themselves. But face ourselves we must in many ways. It doesn't have to be cruel, it doesn't have to be histrionic, it doesn't have to be overly dramatic. At times it might be. At times it will be agony. At times it will be blissful. In all of this, the pain of relief, there will be a relief because there will be a release. There'll be a release of the trapped, knots of who we thought we were, of everything that we, held on to, of the desperate need for control that we believe that we need to have. We don't need anywhere near that level of control. That level of control is because we're trying to avoid ourselves. It changes everything. It just changes everything. It opens the door. Being willing, just that, just being willing, and to face whatever comes up after that willingness is open to, changes everything. Because it opens the door to something that was closed. It opens the door. It ends a certain struggle. It's pivotal. It's pivotal. And I don't see, how transformation, of a deeper transformation, whether you call it awakening or whether you call it transformation or whatever you call it, it doesn't matter. But without that door opening, the door of being willing to face oneself, then it's just random, it's just luck in a sense, There'll always be an argument. I mean, so many people take the argument with themselves, they can't face themselves, take it to the grave. And there's no judgment here because everything folds out and everything rolls out in its way. But, if you're listening to this, if you're caught in a sense that you can't quite face yourself, then maybe that I can't face myself needs a constant review. Who is it that can't face themselves? Because the self is a fiction. The self is made up of all sorts of conditioned beliefs, responses, reactivities, grievances, defenses, attackingness, strategies, all built on the foundation that we are the idea, the belief that we are somebody fixed. But we're not somebody fixed. So who is it that can't face who? And that kind of confusion, if you like. I don't know who I am. I don't even know if I am. Starts to open the door and everything starts to get a bit more shaky, a bit more open in so many ways. And this is a good thing. You don't have to solve the problem of yourself because you're not a problem that needs fixing. You haven't got problems that need fixing. You haven't got trouble that needs mending. Nothing needs to be mended. Nothing needs to be fixed. It's not on that level. The facing oneself is the willingness to meet what starts to arise when the willingness is open to. And in the willingness, something starts to change and things start bubbling up. They don't need fixing, they need allowing. They need recognizing. They need valuing. They need loving. They need recognition. They need to come home. Sometimes they need action. Sometimes they need catharsis. Sometimes they need a big roar of yes. And sometimes they need a humility of surrender. Sometimes they need the body or the energy body to open. Sometimes the solar plexus, our power seat, has been stifled and sat on. I was talking about this the other day. Yes, for so many, the power, the seat of power, I'm pointing here, the seat of power, the solar plexus, that life force that says, yes, I am. Not power over anything, but power of oneself to take one's rightful place in the world. That has been stifled and sat on and suppressed and diminished by childhood, by others, unconsciously or consciously during one's life. And sometimes that needs to be re-engaged with. Sometimes the body does need to be, loved or brought or nurtured or nourished back into power, back into energy, because the body tends to sort of become diminished or suppressed in some way. Carries the energetic imprint of suppressed emotions. And so, the body, once we say, yes, I'm willing to face myself again and again and again and again, because it's an ongoing journey, everything starts to shake up and wake up. And the body energy system, the carrier of unconscious suppressed energies, starts to say, okay, let's go. And that can be the release of emotions. That can be a release of rage. It can be the release of much grief or tears or sorrow, all of these things. Everything. So it is, and so it is. And the beliefs, they want to come up as well. And we're called to face ourselves again and again. This is the path of facing oneself. It's not I'll face myself and, I'll do that today and then I'll go back to normal tomorrow. This is a life path. This is a life path of facing oneself until by and by, over time, there's nothing much to face anymore, because you've kind of returned to the harmony of who you really are. But we build up this, conditioning and, the whole coming into ego self, kind of grows us into a false self, a false idea of who we really are. And we walk around as this entity, and what are we? A dream, an actor, a player, a fiction. We're not much more than a fiction that seems real, but is only real in the dream world. It's amazing, isn't it? So then something starts to change. Something starts to not work. And there's an intuition or an opportunity or a grace or an invitation to start to look at oneself. And one looks at oneself as almost as in you're looking in a mirror. You're looking at the mirror and it's like, who's looking at who? And then the dreamer, the actor, starts to not look so real. And there's the invitation and there's the opportunity to start the journey to one's true self, coming home to one's true self, which is kind of natural and innate and organic and normal. Not an actor. Not an actor in that sense. It's over. Play is over. You just this. and just a thisness, you know, and there's no distance, there's no gap between the, you know, the ego and who I really am. There's just a direct moving in the world, a very organic, natural way of being, because all aspects of the individuation have come home to just this natural being, or an organic being. It's actually very holistic. Body, emotion, mind, spirit are all kind of in harmony. But that comes through the willingness to face oneself. Pure and simple, the willingness to face oneself. Not as an end result, but as an ongoing journey, again and again and again. And the willingness to face whatever arises when we've made the decision to face ourselves. Because things happen. And we've called into being something, the fire of our truth. And when we call into being with our essence, with our truth, with our power, with our willingness, we call into being that fire. That fire goes, okay, let's go. You know, let's start. And nobody knows how long this takes, and it doesn't matter, because it becomes a lifelong path. You're willing to meet whatever arises. Facing oneself is the willingness to meet whatever arises. And then, you know, by and by, you live in this world, in this matrix, in this temporary form, this world as it is, with all its insanity and craziness. And then, you know, by and by, there's the willingness to face whatever arises, without diminishing, without retracting, without reacting, without judging, without projection. As it is, just as it is. And that's all there is. So there's a great, you know, staying and groundedness in presence, in this moment, in this moment, and in this moment. There's nowhere to go with it. You don't leave the moment. You don't disappear into imagination. Don't get lost in the old patterns of suffering. It's just this, which sounds almost kind of nothing, but it's everything. It's sort of, you're just here, aware. Awareness.